Hello everybody and welcome to this webinar. In this afternoon we will speak about the witnessing for tolerance, and we have at the base of our discussion the case of Taijimen community, spiritual community from Taiwan. My name is Camelia Marin and I am a human rights activist, Deputy Director of Soteria International. I'm working in Soteria International because we aim at reestablishing a constructive dialogue between state and social actors together with spiritual practitioners in order to decrease the gap of misunderstanding and to stop the abuses of human rights that resulted from it. And also we aim to launch the dialogue on subjects that connect spirituality with the many aspects of modern life, and also to promote the integration of spiritual principles in the decisions for the future. In this context of the interest for the human rights, we have today the case of Taijimen, and also besides it, several other abuses that we can see and discuss today regarding how sometimes the state, through different institutions of it, can affect the lives of people. Regarding the subject, we can say that there are several cases of spiritual communities and spiritual leaders who were mediatized and convicted by mass media before any judicial decisions. There are other cases in which, no matter what the final judicial decision is, sometimes it is not so easy to find or to reach the final point of the situation, meaning to re-establish the harmony or to re-establish all that was initially before the case, court case and so on, in the case of the spiritual community. Also, no matter which is the final judicial decision, the blame and the years of trial are already a big problem to carry further. Taijimen is such a spiritual community who faces injustices and biased application of law and court decisions in their case. We can say that in the case of Taijimen, it's a long story who started several years ago, like 25 years ago, and we'll present in the beginning of this webinar a short analysis of Taijimen case, who proves the situation and the abuses that are done in this particular case. During the 4 months of the investigation, there were over 400 sensational newspaper articles and over 70 stories by more than 12 TV stations reporting on the case using information from prosecutor Hu. This not only led to a one-sided account of the story, but, as mentioned, is also ostracized Taijimen Dizi from their communities and in some cases broke up their families. The importance of such case in the life of a human being is huge, not only, let's say, in the society, but also inside a special case, a drama, life-changing moment can appear when such a situation starts. The highest court and authorities of Taiwan had concluded that there were no cult, no fraud, no violation of the Tax Collection Act in the case of the Taijimen. Prosecutor Hu should be punished for his wrongdoings. The case should have been over and Taijimen left free to devote its energies and its spiritual and cultural activities. Unfortunately, the case is not like this. On September 2003, Dr. Hong and his co-defendants were acquitted and of all charges by the Taipei District Court. On December 13, 2005, the High Court of Taipei confirmed on appeal the first-degree verdict favorable to Taiji men. On July 13, 2007, the Criminal Division of the Supreme Court of Taiwan pronounced the final acquittal of Taiji men defendants, declaring them innocent of all charges. National compensation for the wrongful detention was given to Dr. Hong and to his co-defendants. The National Tax Bureau claimed that the content of the red envelopes should not be considered as a gift, but as a tuition fee for receiving training in a so-called cram school, meaning a school where students engage in intensive study of the subject for a short period of time. Gifts are not taxable, while cram schools' tuition fees are taxable. The Ministry of Education of Taiwan, which has direct regulatory authority over cram schools, declared 3 times from 1997 through 2000 that Taiji men is not a cram school. In 2007, the Supreme Court decision that acquitted Dr. Hong and his co-defendants from all criminal charges explicitly stated that they were not guilty of tax evasion and that the red envelopes given to Dr. Hong were gifts, which were tax exempt. On December 16, 2011, the National Tax Bureau agreed with the resolutions of the interministerial meeting and launched an open survey through the internet and newspapers. Results were disclosed on February 19, 2012, revealing that there had been 7,401 respondents, and all had answered that they regarded the content of the red envelopes as gifts. The National Tax Bureau had promised to be guided by the results of the survey, yet they reacted by proposing to consider 50% of the money received in the red envelopes as gifts and 50% as tuition fees. This was obviously not favorable to Taiji men and not consistent with the unequivocal result of the survey. On May and July 2020, Taipei High Administrative Court wrote twice to the National Tax Bureau for the central area, asking them to treat the year which was considered to have a tuition fee, which is the year 1992. So asking them to treat 1992 as the other years were treated. All this was in vain. In August 2020, properties belonging to Dr. Hong were seized and Singh's belongings confiscated after the auction was not successful, despite massive peaceful street protests in Taiwan and appeals by international NGOs in July and August. There are several other things that happened in between, all of them showing the biased way in which the authorities of the state, and especially the National Tax Bureau, were treating this case. And in all these years, the community, Taiji men community, they were just standing for their point of view and maintaining constantly the position that the red envelopes were just gifts. And all this case actually doesn't have a real base, looks biased, and is no proof from the National Tax Bureau that the 50% from the income of 1992 or some other years were tuition fees. Regarding this case, there were several webinars, several NGOs and experts who were treating seriously and mentioning very clearly the fact that actually in Taiwan, it is happening a human rights violation regarding Taiji men case. And today, besides this aspect, we'll also see other cases that are happening nowadays in Taiwan, which are raising a big question mark about how the National Tax Bureau is applying their authority, and how actually the state doesn't do anything while things are happening and several people being abused by the National Tax Bureau. In the very beginning, we will watch together a video which is significant, and several people are just making testimonies about how the abuses were happening in their cases. Please, let's see the video now.
If the National Tax Bureau wants to set you up, it's very easy. They would just come and inspect your tax, and you're doomed.
The total amount of money is more than US 600,000, simply with a sheet of tax bill. Tax bureaus inform you how much you owe.
The government just kept adding tax. Up to date, I need to pay US $2.5 million in order to pursue redress through litigation. I already paid more than US $1.4 million. Now I barely have faith in this government. Ministry of Finance's torture, evil, and illegality is the scariest stuff than anyone else. For Taiwanese survival, the fight against the abuse of Ministry of Finance, my son will continue to fight when I die, and even my grandson will continue when my son dies.
The National Tax Bureau suddenly sent me the unexpected tax bills in total more than US $3.9 million. Because of the case, I couldn't sleep for consecutive 6 months. For several times, I even wanted to jump out from the building. During that time, when I appealed to the Deputy Minister of Finance, Zhang Shanhe, he even came up with an excuse. If I don't find you, you are joined up with the inheritance. My inheritance ran away, how could I join up with them? In addition, this case is assigned by the Court of Application of NTB. How I join up with them, that would mean helping you solve the problem. You even revenge on me, what kind of mentality it is? This, I think, reflects his real idea, the assumption of citizens as theft.
I was fined more than 35,000 US dollars, just like that. The nightmare has been haunting me for 10 years. This is unacceptable all my life.
The biggest blow in my life is the tax laws in our country, which first drives people to hell. They negotiate the amount by deducting or adding. If someone dare to go through this and shoulder the burden, I will highly admire him, a miracle for not committing suicide.
My deal purchase fell apart, but the National Taxation Bureau added all the unpaid tax of seller onto me. My life is gone. I got nowhere to seek help. I had depression, now even cancer, but the National Taxation Bureau still keeps chasing me for money. I don't have any more money. More than US 35,000 is already a huge amount for me. I have exhausted all that I could do. I have been unemployed for 30 years because of the illness. The tax, just like they push a knife on my neck. How could I survive? I am on the verge of death, and the government still doesn't let me go. Please help me. It's been more than 20 years. I cannot take it anymore. The government still wants money from me. It's killing me. I want my justice.
Each invention patent costs 10 to 14,000 US dollars to obtain. Within 10 years, I have obtained 1,600 patents, and the president said that he wanted to reward me and suggest me price my patent in exchange of capital, such as technology investment to industrialize my research. Following his advice, I select one patent and price it. Originally, my company was 1.8 million US dollars. Then the capital was increased to 10.8 million US dollars due to my technology investment. But what happened? By the end of the year, I was asked to pay 5.4 million US dollars in taxes. I protest. I didn't even sell my shares. Why tax me? That was very unfair. I suggest, how about use my shares as collateral? The National Tax Bureau refused as they thought my stocks were worthless. They seized all my property, real estate, all my bank deposits, and auctioned them all off. So I now have nothing.
You tax officials should fix it when you know something's wrong, rather than threaten citizens to hire a lawyer to sue me. It's like saying, yes, I buy you, I bully you. What can you do?
I asked the director of the NTB immediately, within 1 week, to refund me the incorrect tax money of 35,000 US dollars.
They said the fine is 20 times the amount you owe. Who decides that? The National Tax Bureau does. Who decides how much back taxes you owe? The NTB does. And if you don't accept, they will audit your tax records for 10 years.
Since the company want to avoid trouble, we have no choice but to surrender. Most of the times, we pay up around US dollars 1.7 thousand to 2.5 thousand to satisfy NTB's requests.
The tax agency came to my office to inspect tax and asked me to make it up with more than US dollar 71,000. During the process, the amount was negotiated down to US dollar 10,000. Because we don't dare to go against government authority, we can only obey and pay up the US dollar 10,000 tax money.
The district officer told me, "You have the highest profit in my district, so you can pay a little bit more." I've never evaded taxes. Why do I have to pay a little bit more for less tax?
A tax official came to me unexpectedly and asked me to pay the additional amount of $7,000. 1 week later, he visited me again and said, I submitted your case to my superior. He said it was unacceptable because this amount is way too little. He said my boss said that there should be one more zero at the end of the number. That is, the amount went from $7,000 to $72,000.
We did have transactions with them. The NTB only informed me 5 years later that the entity we traded was a paper company and came to fine us instead of that paper company for VAT tax. It's very unfair. After paying the additional VAT tax, my boss closed down the company. It had been hard to maintain the business. He didn't want to live under such taxation threat.
The NTB issued me a 5-year tax bill on the reasons that my store's signboard does not match the registered company name.
He insisted on imposing the tax. I then went to litigation. I was plagued by multiple mental and physical illnesses during the 5-year proceeding.
The NTB discretionarily carry out inspection on all my previous tax returns. If there's an error, I'll be fined. I've already been fined twice.
My mother-in-law's name was Wang. When she saw this tax bill, she was shocked. My parents-in-law were honest and law-abiding people. They always paid their taxes, so she just returned the bill. But 1 year later, the same tax bill came back. Obviously, my mother-in-law was a lady, but the Wang on the previous tax bill was a guy. This time, the gender, address, and ID number were all changed to my mother-in-law's information, so the tax bureau could force her to pay. Every year, my mother-in-law was haunted by the same tax bill. She passed away in 1996, and I received a court enforcement notice in 2001. It was really scary. We have suffered so many years as a family, yet those corrupt bureaucrats walked away without consequences. They don't admit their wrongdoings and keep repeating their mistakes. They should be rightfully punished.
The company accepted my technology investment because they wanted my technical skills, and this was approved by the Ministry of Economic Affairs. A year and a half later, the National Taxation Bureau replied me saying, "Sorry, this is not a technology investment, this is salary income." They asked me to pay more than US dollars 144,000 in taxes. I went to file a review and went through the administrative litigation. I also filed a litigation to the administrative court then. Of course, they turned down my request and I lost the case. They took all my money from my bank account first and sent me a notice, and then also restrict me from leaving the country. I cannot go abroad. My ex-wife was unable to comprehend the situation, so we divorced. Of course, the children have been in the United States since.
My house was auctioned off because of 2 unpaid traffic tickets of $648 US. On March 30th of this year, I was informed to hand over my house by the clerk. It was then that I learned my house was being auctioned off. I have no idea from the beginning, and suddenly I received the bad news.
In 2016, I received a notice from the NTB that informed me to pay the luxury tax. My husband and I have only one house registered under our name, and we move into it within the required period. Why do we need to pay the luxury tax? Every time we try to check with the NTB, they simply use various regulations to convince us to pay the tax of more than $180,000. If we refuse, we will be asked to pay nearly $360,000 with fines included.
Because he couldn't make money. He went to work in China. It was then the NTB said that we earn more than 40 million US dollars and imposed a tax bill of over 1.8 million US dollars. As a result, my husband couldn't come back because he would be restricted from leaving Taiwan. One of my kids was 1 year old then and the other 3. My older kid is now 10 years old. 7 years! My husband has missed the family time of 7 years to be with my kids and me in Taiwan just because of a single wrong tax bill. They definitely knew it was a wrong bill, and yet they are unwilling to correct it.
The Taxation Bureau adopts a very simple approach when imposing taxes. They are the boss. After taxpayers receive a tax bill and declares, it's not my tax and there is something wrong with the bill, then how does NTB respond? NTB simply just asks people to prove it. Prove it if you can, otherwise you have to pay.
My land has been expropriated by you, and you still ask me to pay taxes? It doesn't make sense. I will pay the tax if you return the land back to me.
We were not informed that we owe taxes, but our house was sealed. Even the final ruling of criminal court could not stop NTB from pursuing the taxation. So my salary is extra. They took away all my money from my bank account. Now there's barely a penny left.
As we could notice, Taijimen case in Taiwan is not just an isolated situation. There are several other abuses happening, and we can appreciate a lot the standing, the position of Taijimen, that they are wishing to just help justice to prevail, and they are not just admitting to pay the fee in order to get rid of all this court case and all this pressure and situation, but they just want to stand for, let's say, dignity and respecting of the freedom of religion, belief, and all in all, freedom of all human beings. And it is obvious that Taijimen case is more and more known. Many scholars and tax experts have voiced their support in response to the injustices against Taijimen case. And another point that I want to add before introducing the first speaker is the fact that Taijimen case is actually a tax case, and is, we can say, behind this a situation of abuse on freedom of religion and belief in their case, regarding all the perspective with the red envelopes of or tuition fee and so on. To let persecution and discrimination to be shaped as private financial matter or even criminal charges has a long history. We can notice that Taijimen taxation case is the most convenient and common tool that the government of a democratic society can use to deny the religious freedom of minority groups. And now we will have our first speaker, Professor Massimo Introvigne, who is the founder of the Center for Studies on New Religions. He is also editor-in-chief of Bitter Winter magazine. And in his work, Professor Introvigne collaborated with OSCE, and after that he was appointed as chairperson of Observatory of Religious Liberty, organization created by the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs in order to monitor problems of religious liberty on a worldwide scale. I invite Professor Introvigne to share with us his expertise in this matter of Taijimen case.
Thank you. During a cold night, a man whose last name starts with the letter Chi arrives in a Central European village dominated by a mysterious castle. He claims to be the new land surveyor invited there by the castle. So starts one of the most famous novels of European literature. Das Schloss, the castle, that German-speaking Czech novelist Franz Kafka started writing in 1922 and left at his death in 1924 in the unfinished form in which it was published in 1926. The novel continues with Key meeting the mayor, who informs him that his appointment as the local land surveyor was due to what the mayor initially calls a mistake. But when the mayor immediately corrects himself, explaining to Key that, I quote, one of the principles that governs the work of the administration is that the possibility of a mistake must never be contemplated. Mistakes are not made. And even if this happened by exception, as in your case, who could say in the end that it was really a mistake? Besides, Key is told, the question is not whether a bureaucratic decision is reasonable or stupid. If it's properly stamped, it should be obeyed. Stubborn Key does not accept the answer and decides to stay in the village, where he learns how the bureaucratic machinery of the castle is vast and complex. Detailed reports are written about everything and sent to high officials who in most cases do not even read them. For common citizens such as Key, accessing the bureaucrats and obtaining meaningful answer is impossible. The novel is interrupted because Kafka died, with Key still struggling to get a response from the bureaucrats. It seems that the end Kafka died before writing should have shown Key dying of exhaustion at the very moment a letter was arriving that might have included an answer from the bureaucrats in the castle. Some have argued that in the novel, Kafka was reacting against the praise of bureaucracy by one of the founders of the science of sociology, Max Weber, which had not only been expounded in specialized scholarly works, but also in popular articles, such as the one Weber wrote in 1917 for the Frankfurter Zeitung. Indeed, we all use the word bureaucracy because of Weber, and we believe that bureaucracy was needed for the modernization and rationalization of the state. Had Kafka read the more specialized works by Weber, he would have found there that bureaucracy also risked to become a stahlhartes Gehäuse, a German expression that has been translated perhaps inaccurately as iron cage. If not corrected by politics, bureaucracy may become as hard as steel, incapable of flexibility. Interestingly, this degeneration, according to Weber, was inherent in the bureaucratic system as it had been originally invented, not by politics, but by religion through the Puritans. Among later sociologists, it was the American Robert K. Merton who mostly insisted on the degeneration of modern bureaucracy, which he described in 1940 through 4 passages. First, to be effective, bureaucracy should demand a rigid adherence to regulations. Second, bureaucrats lose sight of the fact that regulations are means to achieve ends, and regulations become ends in themselves. Third, bureaucrats refuse to accommodate cases not explicitly covered by the regulations. Fourth, because of the lack of flexibility, the effectiveness of bureaucracy turns into injustice and inefficiency. While we celebrate the International Day for Tolerance, we can also say that bureaucracy becomes a tool for intolerance. The mechanical, impersonal, non-flexible answers or non-answers of the bureaucrats may be easily lampooned, but they also cause injustice and suffering. Kafka never intended his novel as humorous, and it should have ended in tragedy. Kafka and Merton may help us reading the otherwise ununderstandable answers to Taiwanese ministries of finances and of justice sent to the Overseas Community Affairs Council, a cabinet-level council of the Executive Yuan of Taiwan, respectively on August 31 and September 10, 2021. The question raised by the council was how it had been possible that gifts given by Dizi to their master in the year 1992 were taxed as alleged tuition of an alleged cram school, while the same gifts for all the other years Taijimin has been in existence were acknowledged as tax exempt. It was because of the tax bill for 1992 that in 2020, as Camelia said, the Administrative Enforcement Agency tried unsuccessfully to auction, then seized the Taijimen sacred land. The National Taxation Bureau and the Administrative Enforcement Agency argued that the difference was that for 1992, there was a decision by the Supreme Administrative Court rendered in 2006, which was final and no longer appealable. However, this decision was rendered before the Supreme Court of Taiwan examined the substance of the matter and clarified in 2007 that Taijimen and Dr. Hong had never evaded taxes. It is a general principle of law that patently unjust decisions may always be rectified. Now, the ministries answered that the National Taxation Bureau's decision to maintain the 92 tax bill was formally unimpeachable as it followed the 1996 Supreme Administrative Court decision. And the Administrative Enforcement Agency auctioned and seized Taijimen land based on a valid and enforceable decision by the National Taxation Bureau. But these are clear examples of the bureaucratic distortion noted by Kafka and Merton. From a substantial point of view, the decisions did not make sense because absolutely nothing different happened in 92 with respect to the other year. However, just as the mayor told Key in Kafka's novel, the answer was that by definition, the bureaucracy does not make mistakes. And once it is properly stamped, a bureaucratic decision may look absurd and stupid, but is perfectly valid. It should be followed. It seems that a vicious circle has been created and there is no exit. As Merton noted, in a democratic state, there is only one way to avoid the intolerance of the bureaucracy. Democratically elected politicians should take over and solve the problem. And this should be the solution of the Taijimen case as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Professor Introvigne for his clear and very much clarifying speech. And now we go further to our next speaker, which is Mr. Willy Fautré. Willy Fautré is director and co-founder of Human Rights Without Frontiers. Willy has extensive experience in freedom of religion or belief around the world. He is a member of the International Consortium on Law and Religious Studies. He has written many articles in university journals, held lectures in academic conferences, testified before interstate organizations, and given interviews to international media. And we can say that since Human Rights Without Frontiers was created, the executive director has been Willy Fautré. And he is very known for his international network of correspondents, and is provided having first-hand, is considered to have first-hand information, and is very, very much going to help when it is needed, those in need and which are abused in human rights. Now, Willy, please take the floor.
Thank you, Camelia. We are on the eve of the UN International Day of Tolerance, and I first want to hail Taijimen for celebrating this day with this webinar. And tolerance and intolerance are two faces of the same coin. The one is reflecting the light and warmth of love. The other one is hiding all sorts of turpitudes. Tolerance is not toleration, which is, and I quote an official definition, no more than forbearance and the permission given by the adherents of a dominant worldview for other worldviews to exist, even though the latter are looked on with disapproval as inferior, mistaken, or even harmful, end of the quote. There is no love in this attitude, only disdain towards others. Religious tolerance respects diversity and practices inclusiveness, while religious intolerance rejects diversities and practices exclusiveness. In 1993, the UN General Assembly proclaimed a year for tolerance at the initiative of UNESCO. In 1995, the UNESCO marked the UN Year for Tolerance and the 125th anniversary of the birth of Mahatma Gandhi by creating a prize for the promotion of tolerance and non-violence. 1 year later, the UN General Assembly invited UN member states to observe the International Day of Tolerance on 16 November, which is tomorrow. Practicing and promoting tolerance worldwide is in the DNA of Taijimen, and it is no surprise that this organization, rooted in esoteric Taoism, celebrates this UN International Day of Tolerance with the full engagement of its Dizi. Despite 25 years of hardship and ongoing violations of their human rights and religious freedom, Taijimen disciples continue to promote love, peace, and conscience around the world. Since it was formally chartered in 1966, the nature of Taijimen teachings has remained unchanged. The DNA of the organization that emphasizes wisdom and martial arts altogether is being passed down from its Shifu, Dr. Hong, to his Dizi from generation to generation. The organization has been dedicated to promoting a culture of love and peace, as well as improving global citizens' physical, mental, and spiritual health. This is the message and the heritage of Dr. Hong, not only to his Dizi, but also to the whole of humanity now and tomorrow. In 2001, during the 54th annual DPI NGO conference in New York, the 9/11 deadliest attacks occurred on its soil. While many people were anxious to leave New York, Dr. Hong and his Dizi, who were participating in that conference, chose to stay there to host the ceremony of ringing the bell of world peace and love, to calm people's hearts, to pray for the United States and the world with UN ambassadors, leaders of NGOs from various countries, and many peace promoters in attendance. The 9/11 tragedy showed the true face of religious intolerance, fanaticism, accumulated feelings of exacerbated hostility, thirst for vengeance, and extreme violence. For years, decades, and centuries, we have seen the cursed children of religious intolerance spreading injustice and death around the world. Despite a huge movement of awakening of consciences across the physical borders of countries, in diverse religions and cultures, the virus of intolerance persists and survives in all human societies of the world. In the 1930s and during World War II, a genocide was perpetrated against Jews by the Nazis in Europe. Yesterday, it was the case of Christians and Yazidis in Iraq, who were decimated by ISIS Muslims. And it was also the case of Muslims who were massacred by the ultra-nationalist Orthodox regime of Milosevic in the Balkans in the 1990s. Now, it is the turn of Rohingya Muslims massively killed by the military regime of Myanmar, identifying itself as Buddhist supremacist. Now, it is also the case with Uyghur Muslims and Tibetan Buddhist victims of a cultural genocide by the communist atheist regime of Xi Jinping. Never again, it was repeatedly said, but the reality is that it is again and again. In the name of true Islam, Shias are persecuted by the Taliban in Afghanistan. In the name of Shia Islam, Sufis and Sunnis are persecuted, while non-Muslim believers just enjoy toleration, in the best case, instead of violence and tolerance, instead of tolerance in Iran. In the name of atheism and Sinicization, all Christian denominations are stifled in China. In the name of Russian Orthodox Christianity and identity, Jehovah's Witnesses are treated as heretics in Russia, banned and imprisoned for the pure exercise of their faith. Religious intolerance has many ugly faces. Taiwan has been a lively democracy since it emerged from the dark years of dictatorship, but its ghosts still make their effects felt. In 1996, the Taiwanese government conducted a political purge targeting religious organizations. A prosecutor named Hu Guangjian falsely accused Taijiman and Dr. Hong of fraud and tax evasion with fake witnesses and fabricated evidence. It took Taijiman more than a decade to be found innocent of tax evasion and all other charges by the Criminal Division of the Supreme Court in 2007, confirming that Taijimen did not owe any tax. However, the persecution has never ended. Taiwan's National Taxation Bureau ignored the Supreme Court's final decision and continued to issue unjustified tax bills to Taijimen, resulting in the unlawful seizure and confiscation of its sacred land. A new generation of Dizi will have to take up the torch of fighting for their rights and their honor peacefully, legally, democratically, and in the spirit of Dr. Hong's teachings. Thank you very much for your attention, and congratulations to Taijimen.
Thank you very much, Willy, and impressive also your speech, and especially regarding this aspect on tolerance. And indeed, we can say that globalization demands inclusiveness, implying that actually people from different religious traditions must learn to share the same society under the protection of the law. And often we can notice that conflicts or discrimination or non-tolerance stem from the lack of diversity and from the dichotomy created by the idea of being right or wrong in the belief. And yes, it's the moment that all of us, we wake up in the heart and we start perceiving the other ones, not just in this pattern of whatever I believe or whatever I think it's the correct one, and we just allow everybody else to have their way of understanding or believing. Thank you, Willy. And we go further to Mr. Giuseppe Cicogna. He is human rights activist, member of the Regional Interfaith Coordination of Piedmont, director of Fedinsieme Committee. And for those who does not know English, Fedinsieme, it means faith together, which is a very good name, and also is underlining kind of what we are doing here together. And we can say also on top of this that Giuseppe Cicogna is an accomplished runner, and yesterday, Sunday, he completed the 42 kilometers of the marathon in Torino, marathon called T-Fast, and he did it in 4 hours and 13 minutes, which is not a small achievement for an amateur. Congratulations, Giuseppe. And now the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. What a surprise.
Yes, we had somebody whispering about it.
Oh, yes. I know. And thank you very much to all of you, and thank you to Professor Massimo Introvigne for the translation of my speech. My English is not so good, so I will do it in Italian. Buonasera a tutti e grazie per l'invito a questo incontro. Prima di iniziare questo mio intervento, per chi non lo sapesse, mi occupo di promozione del dialogo interculturale e interreligioso all'interno del comitato Fedinsieme in qualità di direttore. Un ente che è nato dall'avvocato Francesco Curto, che è presidente di Fedinsieme, e l'idea è di promuovere il dialogo tra diverse culture e diversi culti in un modo innovativo.
Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. For those who don't know me, I'm involved in promoting intercultural and interreligious dialogue within the Fedinsieme Committee of Torino, Italy. I'm the director of this organization, born from an idea of attorney Francesco Curto, who is the president of Fedinsieme. And our aim is to promote the dialogue between different cultures and different religions.
Il modo innovativo in cui Fedinsieme cerca di portare avanti questo dialogo è stato definito e soprannominato da alcuni sociologi di fama internazionale come ecumenismo cooperativo, in cui esponenti di varie culture e vari culti si incontrano, fanno delle cose insieme concretamente, realizzando progetti ed eventi volti appunto alla divulgazione della conoscenza, progetti ed eventi che sono rivolti per lo più però ai più e non soltanto agli addetti ai lavori.
What is original in Fedinsieme, as internationally well-known sociologists who know us have said, is that we use what they have dubbed cooperative ecumenism. Exponents of various cultures and religions meet to carry out projects and events aimed at the dissemination of knowledge intended for a general audience and not only for a few specialized insiders.
Svolgendo queste attività, nel 2019 ho avuto il piacere e l'onore di conoscere il dottor Hong e il movimento Taijimen, un movimento che trasmette una cultura di pace e che questo è un obiettivo che io ed il comitato che oggi rappresento, Fedinsieme, condividiamo e promuoviamo.
Carrying out these activities in 2019, I had the pleasure and privilege of meeting Dr. Hong and the Taijimen movement in Torino. Taijimen is a movement that spreads throughout the world a culture of peace, a goal that I and the committee Fedinsieme I represent today fully share and promote.
Ma sappiamo bene, tutti noi, e altri relatori nei precedenti incontri ne hanno parlato, questo non è un obiettivo privo di ostacoli. Le questioni giudiziarie del dottor Hong e del movimento Taijimen ne sono un esempio lampante.
We are well aware, and other speakers in previous webinars discuss this point, that these paths are never without obstacles. The judicial problems of Dr. Hong and the Taijimen movement are an example of this.
Approfondendo nel merito, queste vicende giudiziarie non possono fare altro che richiamare quanto precedentemente detto dall'avvocato Francesco Curto. È evidente infatti come tali vicende presentino delle ovvie violazioni ai principi giuridici fondamentali dell'uguaglianza, ossia stesso trattamento fiscale al verificarsi delle stesse condizioni e circostanze, e della coerenza, ossia la non tolleranza all'interno dell'ordinamento giuridico di contraddizioni tra parti, atti e norme.
Going into the merits of these judicial events, I can only summarize what was said in the previous webinar of this series by Francesco Curto, the president of my organization, who is an attorney. It is evident, in fact, that events in the Taijimen case represent obvious violations of the fundamental legal principles of equality, i.e. the same tax treatment should apply under the same conditions and circumstances, and consistency, i.e. the legal system should not behave in contradictory ways.
Taiwan sicuramente ha un ordinamento giuridico che potremmo definire atecnicamente complesso. Pertanto è inevitabile che si formino delle distorsioni, ma un sistema complesso in quanto tale deve riuscire a rivedere se stesso e riuscire a superare certe situazioni problematiche. Ma forse nel caso di specie da parte delle istituzioni non ci sarà tutta questa buona volontà di risolvere le vicende giudiziarie del dottor Hong e del movimento Taijimen.
Taiwan seems to have a legal system that, not being a lawyer myself, I will define as complex, complicated. and it is inevitable that some distortions will occur. Yet a complex system as such must be able to self-correct itself and solve its problems. This comment, however, presupposes good faith. And perhaps in this case, on the part of the Taiwanese institutions, what is missing is precisely the goodwill to bring the case of Dr. Hong and Taijimen to a solution.
Entrando nel merito di questa vicenda, risulta infatti paradossale come, ad eccezione del 1992, dal 1991 al 1996, il denaro versato al movimento, secondo il rito delle buste rosse, sia stato considerato donazione e quindi soggetto ad un certo regime fiscale, mentre per il 1992 le somme versate, rispettando lo stesso rito, siano considerate in diverso modo e perciò soggette a diverso regime. Ed è evidente questa diseguaglianza.
If I should comment on some of the details of the case, I find it in fact paradoxical how, with the exception of 1992, from 91 to 96, the money offered to Dr. Hong through the red envelopes was considered a donation and therefore subject to a certain tax regime of exemption, while for 92 the gifts given through the same ritual practice were considered in a different way and therefore subject to a different regime, and the inequality is evident.
Ciò pare giustificato, questa cosa pare che sia giustificata dall'inoppugnabilità di una sentenza emessa nel 2006 della Suprema Corte amministrativa riguardante i versamenti del 1992, che sarebbe stata contraddetta da altri provvedimenti giudiziari. E di qui il contrasto evidente.
This has been justified by the fact that a sentence issued in 2006 of the Supreme Administrative Court regarding payments made in 92 is final. However, it has been contradicted by other legal decisions and the contrast should be solved.
Come direbbe qualche giurista italiano, delle due l'una. Le istituzioni di Taiwan devono chiarirsi le idee in merito alla vicenda e decidere quale delle due interpretazioni ritenere corretta sulle elargizioni ricevute dal movimento Taijimen. Non si può avere un atteggiamento bipolare, un giorno ritenere l'elargizione in un modo ed un altro considerarle completamente in un altro modo. Si deve porre assolutamente rimedio a questa incoerenza.
As Italians would say, among two contradictory statements, only one sentence can be true. Either the gifts in the red envelopes are tax exempt or they are not tax exempt. The Taiwanese institutions must reconcile the contradiction on the matter and decide which one of the two interpretations they consider accurate regarding the donations received by Dr. Hong and Taijimen. A legal and administrative system cannot suffer from a bipolar dysfunction, considering one day the gifts in one way and another day in a different way. Let the inequality and inconsistency be remedied.
Se però ad oggi nulla è stato fatto per porre rimedio alla situazione, allora sorge spontaneo affermare che questa situazione giudiziaria, questa vicenda, sia un espediente per giungere ad un altro scopo, cioè lo screditamento agli occhi dell'opinione pubblica del movimento Taijimen e del dottor Hong.
If, however, nothing has been done today to rectify the situation, one can suspect that the legal and administrative case was just a tool to reach another goal, discrediting Taijimen and Dr. Hong in the eyes of the public opinion.
Se così fosse, fa bene il movimento Taijimen e il dottor Hong ad attirare l'attenzione dell'opinione pubblica sul caso e spiegare come stanno realmente le cose. Inoltre questo tipo di attività, attirando l'attenzione dell'opinione pubblica sul caso, è certamente utile per far sì che le istituzioni di Taiwan si attivino, se mai vorranno, e ci auguriamo assolutamente di sì, per porre rimedio alle incoerenze e le disuguaglianze che sono emerse fino ad adesso.
If this is the case, then Taijimen and Dr. Hong do well to draw public attention to their case and explain what the truth of it is. Moreover, this kind of activity, I mean attracting domestic and international public attention on the Taijimen case, should be helpful in getting the Taiwanese institutions to act, assuming they have the corresponding political goodwill, to remedy the inconsistencies and inequalities I mentioned earlier.
Il movimento Taijimen e il dottor Hong non devono abbandonare questa attività. Tanti professionisti di fama internazionale si stanno esprimendo in vostro favore e altri, ne siamo certi, vi sosterranno.
I would like to tell Taijimen and Dr. Hong, please do not abandon this fight. Many internationally renowned experts are speaking out in your favor, and others, I'm sure, will join them in the future and support you.
Se fosse vero l'intento denigratorio ai danni del Taijimen e del dottor Hong, vuol dire che in gioco c'è molto di più. Quindi vi esortiamo a proseguire ancora, se possibile, con maggior vigore.
If this is part of a slender campaign against Taijimen and Dr. Hong, it means that there is much more at stake. Therefore, we urge you to continue your fight with even greater vigor.
In gioco evidentemente non c'è solo la questione del denaro, ma anche, se non soprattutto, la possibilità di promuovere una cultura di pace nel mondo a testa alta, liberi dalla spada di Damocle delle vicende giudiziarie, come esempio di buoni cittadini, riabilitando così il vostro buon nome con tutti gli onori ed il rispetto che meritate.
What is at stake is not only a question of money, but also, and more importantly, your possibility to promote a culture of peace in the world with your heads held high, free from the sword of Damocles of legal and administrative prosecutions, proudly marching throughout the world as good citizens, clearing your good name and receiving all the honor and respect you deserve.
Spero con tutto il cuore di poter nuovamente incontrare il dottor Hong e il movimento Taijimen e magari, se avrete piacere, collaborare per promuovere insieme i valori di una società mondiale di pace. Una società di pace che non è una società priva di conflitti, ma una società che sa risolvere i suoi problemi in modo illuminato. Per questo vi ringrazio per ciò che fate, per l'attenzione concessa e per la collaborazione. Grazie a tutti.
I hope with all my heart to meet Dr. Hong and the Taijimen movement again, and perhaps having the pleasure of working together to promote the values of a global society based on peace. A society of peace is not a society without conflicts, but a society that knows how to solve its problems in an enlightened way. Thank you for your efforts and thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you also very much, Mr. Cicogna. And indeed, you were also pointing out very well this case of Taijimen, who is facing injustices and biased application of laws and court decisions since more than 24 years, 25 years already. And it's true, we wonder for how long the Taiwanese government wishes to prolong this, we can say, injustice in the taxation. We move further to our next speaker, which is Marco Respinti. Mr. Marco Respinti is an Italian professional journalist, translator and lecturer. He serves as the director in charge of the online scholarly The Journal of CESNUR and Bitter Winter, which is a magazine of religious liberty and human rights, who is also published online by CESNUR. Mr. Respinti, please.
Thank you, Camelia. It is a pleasure and an honor to be with you again to try to clarify the case of Chien-Shien in order to reach the truth, which, by the way, has been quite clearly established by many tribunals and courts, but that for some reason that we are continually exploring is not accepted by some branches or some officials of the Taiwan government. My task today is to lead the second part of our webinar, during which we will hear from direct testimonies. We will have 6 of them divided into 2 groups, so to speak. We will have some Chien-Shien Dizi and some other, some outsider who will anyway give their important contribution. I always appreciate very much the language, the clear language, the scientific language of scholars during these webinars, but of course, the direct testimonies by people who have been involved directly in the Chien-Shien case and that suffered from what has been going on for a quarter of a century is very much important. Today, again, we heard when justice becomes injustice, when taxes which should serve and protect people become a tool of persecution. We are on the eve of the very important day celebrating tolerance, and as it has been said marvelously during the first half of this webinar today, Chien-Shien is witnessing in a very clear way that to respond to that peace and harmony is the real way to respond to injustice. And this is a great lesson that someone within the Taiwan government should learn as soon as possible. We will start our second session of this webinar today with a video. It's an important video with the witness of Mr. Wang Chien-Shien, if my Chinese has some sense in pronunciation. He is the president of the Control Yuan, which is the investigatory and auditory branch of the government of the Republic of China, Taiwan. So it's a very important testimony, and the video is entitled "I Am a Crook," and we will learn immediately why.
我们台湾的人权
Regarding human rights in Taiwan, you can say that there has been some progress, but we are still far from our ideals. We see unfairness and human rights violations in many places. The media has repeatedly reported them, but most cannot be resolved. The main reason is that the violation of human rights is mostly committed by the government's officials. So the government is the one who should self-regulate. It can't be solved by just ratifying the 2 covenants. I want to make 2 points today. I personally think that if these 2 points can be implemented, we will see more fairness and justice in our country. So the number of human rights violations will be greatly reduced. and we will become more advanced in human rights. First of all, there are too many administrative laws and regulations. These regulations often required the administrative agencies to make a lot of interpretations which are not often in sync with the parent law. However, the officials who execute the law do not care the real meaning of related law. Thus, the interpretation of the law is often twisted because their attitude is whatever I said counts. As for the people involved in the case, even though there are legal channels to recourse, they often require a lot of time and effort. So most cases cannot be resolved with judicial means. This has caused people a lot of pain. When a government cannot ease its people's pains, the country won't be a happy and peaceful country. Here I am going to give you two examples to explain. Recently I visited the largest nursing home for patients in vegetative state in Taiwan. It is free, and the quality of care is high. It is not operated by the government, but a private organization. The ones operated by the government are different. You can see many staff sitting there doing nothing. For example, there is a regulation that the ratio of the number of patients to the number of restrooms should be 6:1. If I have 60 beds to accommodate the patients, I need to have 10 restrooms. What happens if I have only 9? The nursing home insisted they could take only 54 patients, so they would turn away 6 patients who are from low-income families. Where do you tell them to go? Let them die. How could the government have such a ridiculous regulation? If you argue with them, their response is always, "Thanks for your opinion, we will keep it for reference, but never take action to correct it." We all know patients in vegetative state cannot go to toilet by themselves. Does it matter exactly how many restrooms there need to be in the nursing home? Only the officials in the Ministry of Interior can make such a ridiculous regulation. They are such genius. They should be listed in Guinness Book of World Records. In our government, how many other agencies have such ridiculous regulations to harm human rights? People are helpless. Later, someone reported such case to Vice President Wu. Do you know what the Ministry of the Interior replied? The performance evaluations of this nursing home in the past 2 years are A. Nothing needs to be changed. How can there be such a thing? The attitude of those officials is like, I don't care how you feel. I am an official. So the government agencies are full of this kind of bureaucratic atmosphere. Bureaucratic politics. This is something that permeates our country's administrative system. If they don't change their attitude, let me tell you, it's useless for you to hold 100 meetings like this. What I couldn't understand was that when I submitted report to the Vice President, all I got was the reply forwarded from the Ministry of Interior that said, the performance evaluations were all A's. I hate this kind of officials who don't understand the people's pain. This is not just happening in social and political units, but in other units, including when I was the Minister of Finance. You just talked about a lot of taxation human rights, and I agree very much. Some time ago, an association related to tax issues came to me and asked me to write a foreword to a book. I am sure when I was the Minister of Finance, we must have a lot of laws like this that do not take into account civilian life. We must have laws that make life of people difficult, so I wrote down, I am a crook. Many of our government officials do not feel the pain of the people when they make laws, when they interpret them, when they enforce them. I also make some laws to make people suffer. That's why I am doing charity work to make up for the wrongs I did before. So, these government officials should step down to experience real life, so they will understand the pain they have caused. What's a public servant? The word public servant does not exist in the Republic of China, I tell you. So speaking of this, I think the first thing we need to do is to let the government do administrative innovation. This public discontent will be reduced a lot, you know? They say they all do good on performance evaluation. This does not mean anything. And this is like cheating. So, we must reform our way of evaluation performance for government officials. If we don't, they will continue business as usual. So we must speak out to let people know. So I'm calling on our government to work together with the private sector. I said a lot today, but with good intention. Thank you all.
We just learned why he said I am a crook. This powerful testimony, I think, speaks for itself and should be seen by as much people as possible related to Taiwan case and beyond. Of course, when the state and the government reverse its own role and becomes a persecutor of people instead of serving people, they accomplish a great injustice. So it's very commendable, this testimony. We now move to our direct witnesses. The first of whom is Mr. Chien-Shien, proceeding attorney, managing partner of A and Associates Attorneys.
People who study the law often say, we value the law. So, what is the morality of conscience? There is no certain standard for morality of conscience. People argued that conscience is not important. Then, we are going to focus on discussing how to perfect our system as lawyers. It is not wrong to say this, but it is not complete. Why? Because history continues to tell us that systems will always fail, and democracy will also fail. From the history of the past 100 years, the most notable example is World War II Germany, which is Nazi Germany. The Nazi Party obtained power over Germany through legitimate democratic elections. They did not obtain Germany through an illegal armed regime. What did they do when they gained power? Of course, they invaded other countries. The first is foreign aggression. What about domestic? The Jews were massacred, and many Jews were sent into concentration camps, and then they were sent into gas chambers. According to statistics, at least 6 million people were massacred. Do you think those 6 million people were individual cases and exceptions? Or a general case? We often discuss whether we want to transform justice, whether we want to solve individual cases, or solve general cases. In fact, I personally think that this discussion is actually of little significance. What is the purpose of our transformation of justice? It is to correct the state's public power about doing the wrong things in the past. So, after we look at Germany after World War II, they have paid such a painful price. During this process, many people would question, why did your country kill 6 million people? All of your people, including the administrative system and the judicial system, were all silent, and no one was stopping this. Why? When the system fails, what is the only thing to rely on? In fact, it is to rely on conscience. What do you say about conscience? We often ask, what is conscience? Actually, conscience is very simple. That is, in the still of the night, you press your hand, ask yourself, am I peaceful when I do this? It's actually that simple. Does Taiwan currently have a lot of banality of evil? Yes. We all know that many things are wrong, but why no one comes out and speaks up? In the case of Taiji men, many people said, Mr. Chen, This is an individual case, and we are not the undertaking lawyer, so you don't need to be involved too deeply. I said, are you sure it is an individual case? Are you sure it is an exceptional case? When Nazi Germany was massacring the Jews, did they kill one person? Or a group of people? It was a group of people. Is this an individual case? Of course not. Then when the IRS, our collection agency, when slaughtering taxpayers, should it only slaughter one person or a group of people? A group of people. Illegal abuse of power will never be the individual case. It is a structure, and it is a systematic one. The Taijimen case is not a single case. On the contrary, the Taijimen case is a very good case to improve the system of both tax collector and taxpayers. Through this case, we can find out what needs to be improved in our system. This is what we need to pay attention to, rather than entangling and saying, oh, this is a single case. This is not a general case. There are too many tax victims who are hiding, still in the dark corners, who dare not speak out, because they know who they fight against are the IRS and the country, so they dare not. Do you think we lawyers have nothing to do but to fight against the country? Do we want this country to collapse? I believe that the scholars and experts here do not want this country to collapse. Instead, we hope that our country is better. It is because that we want our country to be better, we are sitting here today to prepare sufficient materials to tell our government. How can you do better? So what is the first step to do better? It is to reflect on mistakes. I think the most difficult thing is to let the country admit its mistakes. Why is transitional justice so difficult to execute? It is that the country is unwilling to admit its error. If everyone knows that he was wrong in this matter, then why do we have to find so many reasons to say that the court has already made the court decision? Because what? But not correcting the mistake. I personally strongly agree with the amendment of Article 128 of the Administrative Procedure Law. I also hope that there should be no such time limit, which should not be 5 years. This time limit should be removed completely. As long as it can be proved that the country has done wrong, the country should fix the error by itself. Why should there be a time limit?
Thank you for this. Another powerful testimony from Mr. Chien. He underlined the role of conscience, which is the last tribunal of a human being. There is nothing beyond that. And we should always, as he said, rely and ultimately ask ourselves in conscience, am I doing this rightly or wrongly? And he also underlined a very important point, which I'm very convinced of, and that point is Taijimen is an important case for Taijimen, of course, but also beyond Taijimen. It could serve, as he said, to completely revise the structure of a country. And we really hope that the suffering of Taijimen, Shifu, and Dizi will ultimately serve to create a better world in Taiwan, but also beyond Taiwan. Our next witness is Mr. Sang Pu. He's a political commentator and lawyer in Hong Kong. The floor is yours.
Taijimen has suffered many injustices. It's been fighting for 24 years. It can be said that it has set a record, whether in Hong Kong or Taiwan. This is not something to be taken lightly. We will always stand with the people suffering from injustice. Because we are fighters for justice, right? Today we can see the whole society is full of peace and harmony. I firmly believe in the following ideas. First, an injustice inflicted on a person is an injustice inflicted upon us all. We cannot stand to see any individual left alone in suffering. A person's human rights being violated means everyone's human rights can be and will be violated. We are all bound together by a common destiny. Therefore, no one is to be left behind. That's my first point. Second, the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. Taiwan meets democratic standards on the surface. But we have to watch the government officials to see if they continue neglecting their duties or working for the benefit of the people. In order to have freedom, we have to stay alert constantly and monitor these people. We cannot allow these officials to be parasites or perpetrators. That's my second point. Third, what's the secret to freedom? It's courage, right? When everybody stands up and takes actions, the small actions will add up and change lots of things. More people will join us, Taiji Mendidzo or not. Like me, I'm not a Taiji Mendidzo. We all come out to fight for our rights to freedom of belief and thought and property right. The Tax Collection Act has been implemented for so long. Article 12(1) of the Tax Collection Act says a penalty cannot be imposed without evidence. But do they have evidence? It's based on a written transcript from the Investigation Bureau. Is this kind of transcript evidence? Let me ask you. If you have only $610,000 in your bank account, but they give you a $3,100,000,000 tax bill, is that sensible? We can explore this case from different angles. The case has stirred up your rage and the rage of the youth behind me. If the government does not address the anger, I think it's dereliction of duty. If the government hears us and continues to spoil the law-bending officials, we must hold them accountable. We cannot turn a blind eye to Taiwan because of what's happening in Hong Kong. We have to work together, heart to heart and hand in hand. Human rights are of the highest value. I believe God is watching us from above. I hope you will continue to stand up and do what you have been doing. True protests have the power to transform society and redress injustice. Legal and tax reform is our true demand. I hope everyone will keep fighting. We have many foreign friends here. Fight for justice. Fight for justice. Stand with Taiwan. Fight for Taiwan. Thank you all.
I think it's another important testimony, just for the fact that it comes from Hong Kong, which is suffering its own problem, and uttering the word God in Hong Kong these days is becoming more and more difficult to use an understatement. So thank you so much, Mr. Sangpu, for your comment, pre-recording on the video. And this applies to Taiwan, of course. It applies to Hong Kong. It applies to China. It applies to all the people who are fighting for justice and for having their religious liberty, basic human rights respected. We now move to our third testimony, coming from Mr. Andy Wang. He's a retired vice president and a Taiwan Dizi, and again his contribution comes through a pre-recorded video.
My son Jason had been suffering from asthma since he was very young. He was even rushed to ER several times when the asthma attacked him. Very serious in the middle of the night. In the meantime, I was also suffered from back pain due to intervertebral disc protrusion. Even so, I could only hold him the whole night to comfort him despite my own pain. I dare not let go of my beloved son even I was feeling tired, sleepy myself. When Jason was about 5 years old, he was hospitalized with pneumonia due to a cold. One day, when I went to visit him in the hospital after work, I happened to see the nurse was pulling out the IV needle from his left arm and trying to insert it in the right arm. But After several tries, she kept missing the blood vessel to insert. My son was used to being sick. He had never complained of pain during the injection. However, because he was jabbed several times already, for the first time he said, "Dad, I don't want to make it anymore." I felt so heartbroken and had to hold up my own tears. I still had to try to comfort him and convince him to bear with the pain in order to get better. Seeing that he was tortured by illness, but medical treatment could not relieve him of such suffering, I decided to take him to join Taijimen on the recommendation of my sister. It was January 6, 1996. After practicing Taijimen Qigong for a short period of time, Jason's health greatly improved, and I also no longer suffered from back pains. I not only became healthy, but also learned to have positive thinking, become better tempered, willing to help others under the guidance of my grandmaster. The tone of my life changed from black and white to colorful. Seeing my change, many members of my family and colleagues joined the Taijimen memory also. However, I could not have imagined that the fabric Taijimen tax case happened on December 19th of that same year. It was falsely accused by prosecutor Ho Kwan-yen, and the media report without any proof and caused a great commotion in Taiwan. It was heartbroken to see our beloved grandmaster, his wife, and his brother and her sister were prosecuted without any proof evidence. Due to respect to our grandmaster, he teaches the best kung fu to us, who he loved the most. And the love for him, he loved every disciple. Taijimen has become our second home. Therefore, after 25 years, I and my family are still gardening the academy to this date. Do you know why we can persist for so many years? When I look at my children and the 3 grandchildren, my heart is always full of love and joy, which reminds me of the love and care we disciples received from our grandmaster and his wife. This kind of natural and genuine love touched us dearly. Our grandmaster and his wife and the disciples are like a big family. Any improper prosecution cannot separate us. In addition to learning Taijimen Qigong from my grandmaster, which greatly improved my health, my grandmaster also taught me to improve my temper. So did my impatience and the perfectionism. And the best of all, I also learned the technique of highest level of management and the leadership under my grandmaster's guidance. On July 1st, the year of 2000, I was invited to China to manage a small factory with about 100 employees. It's a new factory. With a sales background, I had never managed a factory before. Fortunately, I got to apply what I learned in Taijimen to my work. In less than 10 years, the small factory became the largest one in the industry in the world. We had branches in US, Europe, Australia, and Asia. I was also highly respected by my colleagues and the clients. which affirmed what I learned from my grandmaster was the real management skill that I cannot learn from school. For instance, manage yourself first before you can manage others. I care for my colleagues just like my grandmaster cared for me. I taught them management and work skills separately, concerned about their work and the life balance and the personal development. Thus, I create an excellent team and establish the largest and the most influential company in the industry. They are all due to the influence I got from my grandmaster. He taught me the real meaning of love. Because of the love, I was willing to take good care of my colleagues. And of course, I'm doing the same for the academy and for my dear brothers and sisters right now. And also because of love, I follow my grandmaster to promote love and peace and the era of conscience in many countries, hoping for a better world. Over the past 25 years, for this fabricated test case by a small number of illegal officials, even though the Supreme Court has ruled that Taijiman was not guilty and did not owe tax, and even though it has been through 4 elected presidents who all spoke highly of Taijiman publicly, by none of them could uphold the justice to order the National Taxing Bureau to correct the tax bill and redress the Taijiman tax case. Now, this case has brought attention to many international scholars, experts, and activists of human rights. What they cannot comprehend is that Taiwan, known as democratic and a free country, has such an infamous case and has lasted for 25 years. I sincerely hope that the Taiwanese government, especially the president, can stand for good citizens and safeguard the democracy and the rule of law. Stop abusing human rights by a few ruthless government officials and show us Taiwanese citizens and friends in international community that the justice can be truly realized in Taiwan and make Taiwan seen as a truly democratic country. Thank you.
I am always personally very impressed when I hear stories of how spiritual ways and spiritual happenings can affect on the life and character of the people. And it's very important. This reminds me how much important is that everyone could enjoy religious freedom, and how much important is for the state to pay total respect to religions, faiths, and spiritual ways, and always step back, always step back. We have finished our the first half of our second session of the webinars today, and we now will see a very brief but important film, 3 minutes long, very important, about Taijiman recent petition trip to Washington, D.C. in the United States of America, before moving to our second part of our second session today.
This is the third protest in DC after the first two in July and September of this year. Representatives of Taijimen disciples firmly stated that they would fight against the unjust case that has lasted for 25 years until the Taiwanese government is willing to face the truth, respect human rights and freedom of belief, and redress the Taijimen case.
We are here today on behalf of the Taijimen Dizi around the world. You talk to your people. When you communicate to the government, don't be too shy. If the first time government didn't hear, you can raise up your volume, speak up. If the second time government still no response, you can raise up your voices even more. And the third time, when the government did not respond, you can ban the table! Ban the table! Ban the table!
Since July, Taijimen disciples have submitted 3 petitions to Representative Shao and made several phone calls, but Representative Shao still refused to accept the petition.
Today we're at the Taipei Economic and Cultural Representative Office tax row, and we want Representative Shao to come down and speak with us. Come down! Come down! Come down! Come down! Come down!
We want to let the whole world know that Taiwanese government allow rogue bureaucrats to persecute us for 25 years. We are calling on President Tsai to face this issue seriously. The Taiwanese government must correct its mistakes and resolve our case and return our sacred land immediately.
Taijimen is back in Washington, D.C. because we have not received a response from TechRow. Even though we met with Representative Shaw in July, nothing has happened yet. We're going to continue to raise our voices until we get justice.
This is the third protest in D.C. after the first two in July and September of this year. Representatives of Taijimen disciples firmly stated that they would fight against the unjust case that has lasted for 25 years until the Taiwanese government is willing to face the truth, respect human rights and freedom of belief, and redress the Taijimen case.
It's very much important that Taijimen Dizi make their voices heard outside Taiwan, and the United States of America is a key place because of the importance, of course, and influence that, for good or for bad, the U.S. have all over the world, and also because Taiwan, of course, is a strong ally in a very turbulent area of the world, a strong ally of the U.S., strong ally of the West. So the West and the U.S. should do what is in their power to ask Taiwan government to redress the misdeeds of some of their officials. And of course, the U.S. have the religious liberty enshrined, what a beautiful expression, in their own constitution as the first political human rights of the American citizens. So they should hear and should do whatever is in their position and power to help Taijimen Dizi and Shifu, and of course, by doing this, help promoting religious liberty for all. We now enter in the second and last part of our second session today. We have another testimony by Ms. Megan Su, whom I see online, She's chief brochure of an airline company and a Taiwan Dizi. So Mrs. Xu, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marco. Hi, everyone. I'm so honored to be here to participate in this forum. I'm working as a chief purser for an airline company. I enjoy my work, which gets me to fly to various places in the world. This work looks very fantastic with lots of film on the surface, but it's full of all kinds of challenges. In addition to jet lag, staying up late, exposure to high level of radiation in the sky, unexpected crises during the flights. Especially right now, we are facing the high pressures of COVID-19. It is a test to see if the body and the mind can withstand and adjust to it. About 1 year after I started to fly, I was diagnosed with arthritic rheumatic disease. It had something to do with my immune system, which would prohibited me from flying. Fortunately, I got to join Taiwan Academy under my elder brother's recommendation. Practice Taiwan Qigong not only has helped me to regain my health, but also made it possible for me to continue to fly over 20 years now. What's more amazing to me is that I have learned the life wisdom of yin and yang from my master. And it has helped me to solve quite a few crises on the plane. My master often describes me as an angel. The wings of the plane are just like the wings of an angel, which help me to bring happiness and joyfulness to everyone I meet. My colleagues and the passengers could also feel the positive and joyful energy I brought on the plane, so I could accomplish each mission safely and smoothly. Not only did my crew member enjoy working with me, but the passenger also disembarked with smiles and appreciation. It's not what I learned from the textbook, but from my master who told me heart is the most important factor to treat everyone. Our master, Dr. Hong Daozi, always told us that it is not enough to be good for ourselves, but to be good for the whole world is the real good. Therefore, we have followed him to visit 101 countries to promote love and peace, hoping to inspire kindness in people's hearts. What impressed me most is during a trip to Turkey when we visited an NGO organization in Istanbul, Marmara Group Foundation. The president, Dr. Suve, was also a very wise person who spent his lifetime to promote peace and cultural exchange, improving the economy and trade harmony between Asian and European countries. Our master shared the importance of the conscience with Dr. Suve and mentioned, conscience is the passport to the heaven. Upon hearing this, Dr. Suve's eyes welled up and expressed his sincerity to endorse the declaration of International Day of Conscience and invited our master to deliver a speech and conscience in their annual international conference, hoping to inspire conscience in more people. He was grateful that there was a great man on the other end of the world who was promoting positive energy of love and peace and conscience. It is such a great honor to travel to 5 continents with Dr. Hong to spread the culture of conscience of love and peace. But in Taiwan, such a group that promotes love and peace and the culture of conscience and is respected by the people abroad has been subjected to a very unbelievable 25-year-long human rights persecution. Over the past 20 years, we continue to pursue administrative relief through the legal channels, but we are unable to obtain effective relief. We could only protest insensitively, even sleeping in front of the presidential palace on Kaidao, hoping that the president could listen to our voices. I also took the opportunity to fly overseas and went to the overseas economy and cultural offices in nearly 20 countries to present the grievances of our overseas disciples to the directors. But all the letters I received were the same, asking the relevant units to handle the matter, and then nothing happened. We, disciples all over the world, have worked hard for 25 years for the fourth case, and it was created out of nothing. But last year, the National Taxation Bureau and the Executive Office jointly sold our sacred land illegally. Such a despicable act of robbing people of their property is happening in my favorite homeland, Taiwan. The role of the government is to protect the innate human rights of the people. I'm sorry. But the Taiwanese government has gone against the grain and severely persecuted the freedom of the conscience and the freedom belief of the Taijiman disciples. I had the privilege of traveling with Dr. Hong over 40 countries, and all of them, whether they were heads of the state, of the leaders, had great respect for our Shifu, and felt that Shifu has devoted his life to promoting love and peace and conscience, which is such a great thing. That's why they always wanted to keep Shifu in their countries and couldn't let him leave. While Shifu was leading us abroad and trying to do the national diplomacy, the Taiwanese government not only didn't support and be the strongest backing for the people, but also used the taxation methods to suppress them. We could have spent 25 years doing more to help the world and draw hearts to goodness. But instead, we spent 25 years in a circle of violent state persecution. Every time I think of the 4 presidents, 6 vice presidents, and many foreign ministers who have publicly praised the Taijiman for their cultural diplomacy for the country over the past 20 years, allowing Taiwan to stand out and the world to come in. But what happened? The government has not redressed the Taijiman case yet. It's so disappointed. So we sincerely hope that the conscience will start from Taiwan, and we sincerely hope the President Tsai Ing-wen will urge the Ministry of Finance and the National Tax Administration to revoke the illegal tax bill and return sacred land that have been illegal auctioned off, so that justice can be done to the people. We also hope the government will let us Taijiman disciples to do good deeds in the world without worries. I'm convinced that our 25 years of perseverance, even with all the thorns in the ground, will be greeted with the fragrance of the flowers by the voices of conscientious people. As Dr. Hong Daozi, our master, said to the world, conscience is like a beautiful flower that blossoms to make the world smell and shine. This is my sharing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Megan Su, for reminding us the real nature of Taijiman and why it should command respect, at least respect from everyone, of course, even included bureaucrats, especially when bureaucrats turn into the narrow-minded bureaucrats that we spoke of before. It's now the turn of Mr. Tony Hu, a business owner, and another Taiji man, Dizi. Mr. Hu, the floor is yours. Technical problems, maybe? Is Mr. Hu online? I guess not. We may possibly move to the next witness and probably come back to Mr. Hu when he gets back online. Oh, I see him online. Mr. Hu, the floor is yours. We cannot hear you. You seem to be unmuted, but we still can hear you. Nothing happens. Okay, now Mr. Hu is muted, and we should try to get him back to. I suggest to move forward to our next speaker, if you don't mind, Mr. Hu, and then come back to you whenever you give me a sign and you're ready. Are you okay with that? I think so. And so let me introduce Mrs. Yu-Ting Li. She's an assistant researcher for a research institute in Taiwan and the Taiji Mendizi. Mr. Lin, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to have the opportunity to share my opinions on this webinar. I remember that the UN produced a special film called Urgent Solutions for Urgent Times on the 75th anniversary of the UN, which is divided into 4 chapters to address the urgent issues our world is now facing, including justice and human rights, etc. Meanwhile, I was particularly impressed by SDG Goal 16, which is peace, justice, and strong institutions. This goal states that conflict, insecurity, weak institutions, and limited access to justice remain a great threat to sustainable development. You may wonder why could institutional and judicial weaknesses affect our society. In fact, the core issue behind this is whether human rights are being protected and practiced. If a country cannot guarantee human rights or uphold justice, it cannot be considered as a sustainable or a progressive country. And today, if an individual's basic human rights and dignity were violated, and after he asks for the legal aid of the justice system, and the government still cannot help restore his innocence and justice, then the government must check seriously what has gone wrong with its system. I believe that many scholars have known Taijimen case very well. Because of this incident, my family and I can relate to and empathize with the issue of human rights persecution easily. So there were about 11 members in my family joining Taijimen. After knowing my mother's allergy problem has improved tremendously after she joined Taijimen, my family not only follow Shifu to practice Qigong to stay healthy, but also learn the wisdom of life. However, in the same year, I became a Taijimen Dizi when I was 5. Taijimen case happened. My relatives were frightened by the house search, so they stopped going to Taijimen Academy because of the incident. This tragic case has entangled us for a long time, and it is so complicated that even the former Taijimen Dizi cannot understand very easily how can we expect the public to understand that this is actually a fabricated case. In my childhood, My family rarely mentioned this persecution experience. Perhaps they were worried about causing the unnecessary misunderstanding. And I once sorted out my grandfather's scrapbook, seeing lots of newspapers that discredited Taiji men. Until going through the last page of the scrapbook, we still couldn't see any newspapers that reported the redress of Taiji men case. And you can imagine how many people died without knowing the truth of the case and without receiving the belated justice during these 25 years. As Dr. Junjie Huang, professor of the Department of Financial and Economic Laws in Zhongzhen University in Taiwan, said on the International Justice Day, the cases of tax infringements on people's property rights have triggered many persecutions of families and human rights. Those who have never encountered this infringement cannot imagine the pain, but for those who have encountered it, they will remember it in the rest of their lives. During the World War II, before the German pastor Martin Niemöller was sent to the concentration camp, he wrote in his confessional prose, First Day Camp, when he saw different chosen targets being arrested, he did not stand up to speak for them. He wrote at the last sentence said, Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. When you hear this, can you vision the tragedy brought by the bystander effect? This is why I continue to stand on the street and speak out for Taiji men case and other victims. Now, here's a question for us to think about. Is a single family or even an individual capable or powerful enough to fight the government system of injustice? Therefore, I hereby call on to everyone not to underestimate our personal power to speak up for justice. We saw that the Swedish environmental activist Thunberg once said at UN Climate Change COP25, there is hope. I agree with this. She believes that hope comes from the people who have unaware but are now starting to wake up. And once we become aware, we change. This is why we have to participate in speaking out and remind people of importance of human rights issues through hundreds of forums. In the beginning, you might feel the power is so tiny, but fact and truth will support us to speak out the problems of the system and arouse the voice of urgent reformation from people. We continue to carry out various movements through legal and tax initiatives, petitions, and peaceful protests. Meanwhile, we also receive feedback from citizens on the street. I once met a couple of business owners, and they were very impressed after hearing the stories of tax victims like Mr. Ye, and even asked for the initiative flyers to be sent to their friends who are also business owners. So I think such an initiative is influential, but it requires perseverance and patience. We all hope that everyone around the world can help transform the bystander effect into the butterfly effect of the voice of justice, which urges the transformation of justice, so that the country known as democracy and rule of law can truly implement the rule of evidence, uphold conscience, and bravely correct their mistakes. It will also allow taxpayers' rights to be implemented and guaranteed. As a publication, Justice Denied, the Taiji men case in Taiwan, a white paper jointly written by Dr. Massimo Introvigne et al., indicates that Taiji men are not fighting for themselves only. They raise crucial questions of justice, freedom of belief, and human rights. The injustice perpetrated against them is injustice against all of us. This is why we should all be concerned about Taiji men case, and we will keep on fight until justice comes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Yu-Ting. I just want to underline out of many important things you said, two words, hope and carry on. No matter how big, powerful, and dreadful is Goliath, we need to conserve hope and build on that. And when we build on that, we can, as you said, carry on for a better future, for a better world, for Taijimen again, for all people, for sure. Now, last but not the least, we go back to Mr. Tony Hu. I'm so sorry with our speakers audience, and especially with Mr. Hu for the problems we had before. Now it's his turn to conclude this second part of our today's webinar. Mr. Hu is a business owner and a Taijimen Dizi. Mr. Hu, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marcos. No problem. We saved the best for the last. Okay. So hello, everyone. My name is Tony. I'm very honored to participate in this forum today. And as many people will mention about the Taijimen case, I believe you know about the Taijimen case. I believe justice denied is justice delayed. So furthermore, I want to share my experience, how I know about Taijimen, how I get benefit from Taijimen, how our country, Taiwan, should be protect Taijimen. And here we go.
I'm sorry, I hear nothing from.
Okay, here.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I got it. Sorry. Okay. Okay, I'm currently running my own business. I immigrated to the United States with my parents since I was young. I did not know much about Chinese culture. At the school, my teacher oftentimes led us to share our culture. I cannot share much about the beauty of Chinese culture. I could only say that there are dragon and lion dance, and the famous actor Bruce Lee, the Chinese Kung Fu. Until the year of 1990, the Seattle Seafair Torture Light Parade is one of the top 10 parades in the United States. At its 50th anniversary, the event was granted holded, and 144 organizations were invited to join the parade. My elementary school classmate told me that Taijimen was the first group to be approved to participate in the parade. The governor of Washington, Mr. Gary Locke, the mayor of Seattle, Mr. Paul Scheer, the president of the United States, Mr. Bill Clinton, as well as the UN Secretary General, Mr. Kofi Annan, all sent Taijimen welcome letters. After hearing this, I'm very yearning for attending this event. So that I drove 18 hours from San Jose, where I live, to Seattle to witness the Taijimen Goodwill Cultural Group of 1,200 Dizi and our Sifu. Not only I was shocked, over 400,000 audience along the parade route shouted, "I love Taiwan, I love Taijimen." During the live broadcasting of Carol TV, Channel 7, the host introduced the Taijimen group for 5 minutes exclusively. From this event, I found that the Chinese culture is so beautiful. For the costume, props, dance, martial art, music, and the cultural spirit of love and peace to be conveyed to people. At that moment, I'm proud of my Chinese culture. After experiencing the Grand Parade in Seattle, I really wanted to join Taijimen. On September 9, 2000, Through the recommendation of my elementary school classmate, I had the opportunity to join Taijimen in the United States and practice Taijimen Qigong at San Jose. In the Taijimen, brothers and sisters are from all walks of life, different race, religion, and culture. We learn together the wisdom of yin and yang philosophy, which taught by my Sifu, Dr. Hong. Our lives have changed tremendously to have a fabulous life. I am a second child in my family. I have an older brother who will take the responsibility, and a younger brother who is the focus of everyone. Therefore, I have developed an introverted personality, which does not care about anything and keeps things within myself, does not like to talk, and oftentimes I don't need to express my opinion. After I start practicing Taijimen Qigong, my back pain caused during the sports I like was cured. I was in the school team in swimming, tennis, and basketball. In the Taijimen, I learned to love myself and others. I no longer shut myself away from others and become talkative. I will also take the initiative to care for the people around me. When I joined Taijimen, I was a college boy. I was a college student, nicknamed Tony Boy. After 21 years, I'm now the father of 3 children. My whole family was joined Taijimen, and we are very grateful for our Sifu's teaching. And we will apply the skill we learned to our life. My family recently won the Taipei City Education Bureau Federal Taipei Family Model Award. And my business won the 2nd place in the Great Customer Service and the Model Store among the 126 stores of the chain brand in the world. I really have to say that all this must to thank to my Sifu, Dr. Hong Daozi, for his teaching. Over the years, I have traveled with my Sifu to share the message of love and peace and promote the concept of conscience around the world. I remember in year 2001, my Sifu told me that he would like to, if there are opportunities, to go to Africa to do cultural exchange and to help local people there. My Sifu is a practitioner and always follows through what he has said. The following year, 2002, Taijimen Goodwill Cultural Group visited more than 10 countries, including East, West, Central, North, South Africa, all over the Africa, and visit many presidents, so that the message of love and peace was deeply rooted in the head of the state. So far, Taijimen has visited 106 countries at our own cost or our own expense, and held more than 3,000 cultural performances. Again, Taijimen is not a performing group. We are doing cultural performance to send a message of love and peace and conscience. Taiwan has 4 consecutive presidents, which has been elected by people. They all praise about Taijimen, and thanks to Zhamen of Taijimen, Dr. Hong, for his diplomacy to Taiwan and making huge contribution to let Taiwan be known by the world. What is so puzzling to me is a high quality cultural group that should be protected by Taiwan government. And we have exhausted all legal remedies in the past 25 years. There were more than 300 legislators called for the cancellation of illegal tax bill, 6 foreign administrators, 5 executive director, 5 deputy executive director, and 6 vice presidents and 4 presidents all say that Taijimen is excellent. Legal tax experts and scholars also consistently appeal to the government that Taijimen's fake case should be rectified immediately and return the property back to the Taijimen. Taijimen, this big energy family, has helped countless families regain their happiness, and there have also helped thousands of families to gain their body and mind healthy. In the last 25 years, Taijimen's effort to help others has been delayed due to the tax injustice. The Taiwan government is really damaged the standard of democracy. The Taijimen is well known in the world and will be great loss for the mankind if Taiwan government kept trying to destroy the Taijimen. Eric Rocks, chairman of the European Forum for Religious Freedom, believes that Taiwan is one of the best performing democracy in the world. However, it is difficult to understand why this dishonest government official kept abusing Taijimen. Eric said that the injustice that occurred in democracy are worse than the injustice that occurred under the totalitarian regime because they may lower the democratic standard of the entire world. Therefore, I would like to invite Mr. President Tsai to be a president with an ingredient and responsibility. As we see on the video, you said that if the government cannot hear the voice of the people first time, on the second time, people can speak even louder. If the third time the voice cannot be heard, we can bang the table. In 2019, there was a news reported in Thailand that the judge was forced to convict 5 suspects not guilty because of the interference during the judgment. Those 5 suspects supposed to be charged for 3 death penalties, and 2 of them should be life sentence. Because the interference of the government official, the judge has to be forced to convict those suspects not guilty. Because he has no way to violate his conscience and make a wrong judgment in line with his will, he, in the court, raised the gun and committed suicide. A conscious person cannot bear the injustice received by others, let alone impose the injustice on others. Relevant government officials, please awaken your conscience. We are asking President Tsai to listen carefully to the voice of the people. Stop pretending to be a deaf or dumb. Rectify the false case of Taijimen as soon as possible and return the property back to us. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hu, especially for reminding us that justice delayed is justice denied. I live in a country where this is so true. Nothing compared to what you suffer in Taiwan, but this is a golden rule. Immediate justice is true justice. We concluded our second session, the second session of our today's webinar, and it is my real true privilege now to give the floor to Dr. Bernadette Rigal-Cellard. She's Professor Emeritus in North American Studies and Religious and Social Science in Bordeaux, Montaigne University, France. She will draw some conclusion of our seminar today, and again, it's my real privilege to launch her on the floor.
Well, thank you very much, Marco, and thank you to all of you for inviting me to give some concluding remarks. I must say that I have learned a lot today, and it's always very complicated to conclude when so much has been said. So I will try not to repeat what has been said literally, but to give my feelings about the Taijiman case and group. So first of all, I should say that, as you mentioned, Marco, I'm French, so I speak from Bordeaux, France. And of course, France has experimented with the same similar problems of taxation, if you like, of a religious group or a spiritual group that did not please some people in the highest spheres of the government or of the judiciary. And as is well known and has been written many times, including in some chapters on Taijimen and on the case, the Jehovah's Witnesses in France experimented a similar problem, since their volunteer work for their church was taxed as being in fact hidden labor. And the group was given a huge fine by the French government of something like 4.6 million euros, if I recall properly. But we don't have the same very complex system in France as you have in Taiwan, though if we look at a system within the European Union, it may be similar a little bit to what you have in Taiwan, with you know, the different Yuans you have in your own country. Here, of course, the higher level above the French judiciary system is the higher court, the European Court of Human Rights, and it sentenced it, you know, of course, took the case and decided that France had to give back the 4.6 million euros in unfair taxation to the Jehovah's Witnesses. So this was, if I remember, in 2012. Willy and Marco can give detail afterwards if need be. But it's a similar type of situation in a way. And what I have learned several months ago already, when I was reading the chapters in particular of the Journal of CESNUR on the Taijimen case, was what kind of organization it was. And I learned everything, in fact, about it in the chapters of the journal, and today through the different testimonies that I heard. And thank you very much to all of you who are Dizi and who gave us testimonies of what Taijimen brought to you and can bring to the world. So I discovered then over the months, and in particular today, the kind of spirituality which is taught by Grandmaster Hong, and how it can change people and then society. And it's very interesting to see how, you know, such a case, a legal case, in fact, has some positive impact, because without the case, without the taxation case, I'm sure that most of us here who are not from Taiwan wouldn't know about your group and wouldn't know about the possibilities that it has, that it is offering still to the rest of the world outside of Taiwan and outside of the diaspora of Taiwanese people in the United States. So as we say in French, out of an evil always comes some kind of good, you know, result. So that's one thing. I discovered what, you know, Taijimen was and what kind of good it could bring through then Qigong, self-cultivation, etc., etc. So that would be my first thank to Grandmaster and to you all here. Second, I was very, I liked the idea that Massimo expressed about democracy, bureaucracy as being literally taken out of a novel by Kafka, the castle or the trial, etc., etc. And we do have an adjective in French, but also you have it in English, which is Kafkaesque and Kafkaien in French, which is that when something becomes extremely complex, that you find no explanation to something, and you enter into a maze, which turns into an endless tunnel, where you think about what Kafka wrote. And I like this idea, but at the same time, so this was to explain how bureaucracy works. That is to say, in a sort of blind machine-like way in which nobody, I mean, no actor would have any kind of, would feel any kind of responsibility towards the other members, the other cogs of the machine, and even less, of course, to the rest of society. But in fact, bureaucracy is not a machine. It's not just a mechanical institution. It's made of humans. So that bureaucracy should be a sum of humans. Of course, when we use the term bureaucracy, we only look at the negative aspect of the institution, but still it's a sum of humans. And I myself have worked a lot in the administration of a university, in the bureaucracy of the university, and I've always tried, maybe without positive results, but I've always tried to use what we call how to discern what you should be doing for the general good, or maybe for the particular good of other people, of students, for example, or of colleagues, etc., etc. So I think that in this particular case, what should be stressed when you write or when you protest is ask of each individual involved in the case, that is to say, from prosecutor Yu to all the other people who have participated in the writing of the decisions, of the legal decisions, at all the levels of that ladder. Where is the conscience? Where is the human conscience? And also, where is their tolerance? This has been explained also at length by Willy, Fautré. Why wouldn't these people, consider that a group which is very peaceful, you haven't attacked anybody, you're not a terrorist group as far as I know, why couldn't you, operate in a peaceful way? Mainly since all the other courts have found, Grandmaster Hong and Taijiman as a group totally innocent of any kind of fraud. So this is something which is really striking. Why? I mean, and first, do we know why Prosecutor Yu has a fixation on Taijiman as a group? Is he seeking revenge for something? Why doesn't he give up? Why doesn't he relent in his accusations? And also, I've read, of course, about all the different levels of the National Taxation Bureau. This is quite amazing. Why don't they at some point give up, and realize what they've been doing? So this is something which is extremely distressing, I find, that you have a tiny group of people confronted with other humans, other people, a fairly tiny group if you follow all the events of the case for the last decades, that seem to be within a blindless machine and refuse to act as humans. So that's a second point I wanted to make. It is extremely, extremely strange. Also, I wanted to say that when you use the term, we are persecuted, I'm also wondering why, but it connects to what I've just said. Why would you be persecuted? I mean, what is so annoying in your activities that officials, prosecutors, etc., would keep persecuting you, seize land, etc., etc. I mean, it seems to be something that should be analyzed, maybe not psychoanalytically, well, maybe psychoanalytically, I don't know. But I haven't read anything in everything I've read over the weeks on the motivation of the prosecutor behind, the whole affair, starting in the very beginning, all right? So I don't know if somebody has studied this, but I think this is something that should be addressed, or at least to try to understand. Also, I would like to add, and that would be, if you like, my final remark, that I have traveled to Taiwan several times, and I have always been very impressed by the high level of democracy there that, of course, we always tend to compare with another huge country in Asia that I will not name here. But somebody said in some of the testimonies that I just read yesterday that democracy in Taiwan might just be a surface democracy. I don't really think it is just a surface democracy, because I've been able to encounter different religious groups in Taiwan that seem to be, facing no particular problem as you have. And also when you read about the elections, et cetera, since the end of the 1980s, when martial law was abandoned, I think that from the outside, at least, Taiwan does experiment a real type of democracy. And so, because all of us scholars from the West, and also a lot of politicians in the West, are right now supporting the inclusion of Taiwan in a lot of international organizations, in particular after the COVID crisis that Taiwan has particularly well managed. And so we see every day in the newspapers, and I read the Taipei Times, because in English, practically every day, and I read, of course, our own media, and there are a lot of articles on Taiwan and on what the European Union is saying and doing, and you have a lot of people from the European Union Parliament visiting Taiwan, etc., etc. I feel that it is important for the government, the current government, to understand that your case, the Taijimen case, is really a stain on that vision that we all have from here. And so it's important to promote the problem that you are having, in fact, what we are doing right now, because this stain can, I think, easily be cleansed by an action of the government, since you have all these Yuan which control each other. And it's extremely puzzling to somebody like me to try and understand why the control Yuan cannot get rid of this problem. And so I definitely think that your government, as you all said today, have said just now, should solve your problem to make sure that from the outside, as well as from the inside, we do see Taiwan as a nearly perfect democracy. There's no perfect democracy in the whole world, but Taiwan can get closer and closer to the definition of a democracy. So I think this is all I have to say about your case, that I found extremely moving. And also all the testimonies that you, Dizi, gave are very, very interesting, but also very moving. But again, as I said, it is thanks to the problems that you've had that I've discovered, and I mean, a lot of us here have discovered that you existed. And now we can value, in fact, all the positive things you can bring to the rest of society and the world. So thank you for your presence. Thank you for inviting me. And thank you for the work you do. And Megan, for example, when I fly next time, I'll try to see you. And I like the way you compared, the wings of the plane to the wings of an angel. I like that. And also, of course, Yu-Ting Lee and Tony Yu and all of you here. Thank you for the work you do, because you're models, even if I'm not going to join Taijimen anyway right now. You're inspiring, and I hope that I myself can copy a little bit the good you do to the rest of the people around me. So thank you very much. Che or She. So Marco, this is all I have to say, and Camelia as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Bernadette. So I think the floor goes back to Camelia as the general host of our today's webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you very much to all of you. Very inspiring and very moving. All the research that you are doing, all the testimonies that you are doing. It's impressive to see how after so many years, still the things are going. And like exactly as also Bernadette said, also for me is the same. The fact that you had the case in this way we found about you, and also for me it's inspiring your work and your practice. And in the end of this webinar, we have a video prepared, 3 minutes, for sharing a good book which will be released. Let's have this video, and thank you very much to all of you.
Taiji men is an ancient practice group that has existed for over 6,000 years, but Taiji Men Qigong Academy was founded in 1966 in the Republic of China to accommodate the current state of modern society. The Taiji Men Qigong Academy has been in existence for exactly 55 years, so we've collected 55 good articles from Taiji Men Dizi and put them in this book called Living Taiji in the Heart. In this book, we divide these 55 articles into 4 stages of life. In fact, this is based on the theory of psychologist Eric Homburger Erikson. He divides life into 8 stages, then we condense it into 4 stages. What are the 4 stages? That is, children and teenagers are 1 stage, then youth, then middle age, then old age. I don't know which stage you are in now. In fact, these 4 stages are like the 4 seasons. Life is like the 4 seasons, and each season has a different landscape of life. We all encounter, grow to a certain stage, we will have to go to that stage to complete their life tasks. When our life tasks have completed, you will grow, that if the life tasks are not completed, then this person will meet the crisis. This book is very important to put forward a concept, that is, many conflicts between people come from not understanding. Many difficulties in life are not only from not understanding others. In fact, what is more serious is what my Shifu reminded me. In fact, the biggest dilemma in life comes from not understanding oneself. Many times we don't know ourselves, and we don't know what we want. So many times we will be entangled because of internal contradictions, and then our entanglements will add to the negative aspects of others when interacting with people outside. Our emotions will also affect us, so our hearts will be turbulent and unable to be peaceful. So what should we do? In fact, living Taiji in the heart, the name Taiji, as well as the totem Taiji, is the earliest form of Eastern psychology, and Taiji is all about yin and yang equilibrium. The wisdom of Taiji teaches you how to maintain your own balance in the midst of a dynamic and chaotic life, and your heart will remain tranquil as long as you can maintain your own equilibrium in your heart. When a person's heart is calm, there is a way to get along with oneself, to know oneself, understand oneself, encourage oneself, and control oneself. When people's hearts are calm, they are more able to approach others, understand others, and even help others. That is why after 25 years of Taiji Men Dizi, I must apologize. I don't want to cry today. But while we're on the subject, just like in that picture, Taiji Men Dizi can't be imprisoned in that prison, because the heart of Taiji Men Dizi is free, and the heart of Taiji Men Dizi is sunny. We've invited 12 specialists and professionals, including doctors, psychiatrists, social workers, counseling teachers, and special education teachers, to add to the 55 ideas in this book. These 12 brothers and sisters, in fact, have 10 or 20 years of Taiji wisdom in addition to their professionalism. So at the bottom of each article, they use their professionalism to analyze each article, each life story. And I hope that every reader can absorb how the Taiji Men Dizi overcome the difficulties of life through reading this book and get some professional advice from it. So, just like the book's cover, the last thing I'd like to point out is that this little child has 4 golden keys, just like he has 4 keys to the 4 seasons of his life, and he's unlocking the door. What kind of door is he opening? He is opening the door of wisdom of yin and yang. He is opening the door of understanding. He is opening the door of Taiji Men, and once it is opened, a good butterfly effect will be created. I hope everyone has this book, and I hope everyone is happy to read it. Thank you all.